So I was a complete adrenaline junkie, and I actually think that massively helped me in my career, because you always want that next dopamine hit of what's going to make you feel good.
Knowledge is power, and if you've got the hunger and you can have the passion for it, then go for it. And a lot of people listening to this is probably sitting there thinking, I don't actually know what it's going to take for me to do it, and I really hope that they'll be inspired by you. Hello and welcome to The Journey to CFO, ACCA's new podcast where we explore the real stories behind the title. In each episode, we'll be speaking to leading CFOs from across the profession to uncover successes, the challenges and the lessons they've learned on their journey to become a CFO. I'm your host, Rachel Shorter, CFO and founder, and today I'm joined by Sophia Levell. Thank you very much for joining us, Sophia. Before we get into it, let's just give a short intro to this young CFO. Sophia Levell is a CFO at Access Fertility. She became a finance director at the age of 25 and CFO at 28. Sophia brings a strategic exit-ready rigor to financial leadership across complex, multi-entity regulated businesses, turning intricate revenue structures and complex demand into clean, investable narratives. Welcome to the table, and let's talk about your journey to CFO. Sophia, we're going to start with the qualification. Talk me through how you actually got into ACCA.
So I started with AAT, and that sort of naturally progressed to ACCA. So I think I took 2 years to do my AAT, and then from there went and did my ACCA.
When we spoke, you said that you worked just mainly in admin, and then you was invited to do an accounts assistant role, and you thought at that point, actually, I think I'm going to go for the qualification. Was that the decision process?
When I was at college, we did a open day at PwC, and I remember walking into their head office and it was all shiny and being like, I want to own this business one day. So in there, I always thought I want to do finance. So when I became an admin and then the account assistant role came up, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. Yeah.
And when you went into ACCA, were you quite hungry to get all the exams out of the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would wake up at 6 a.m. every single day, make myself a cup of tea, go up to the room where my desk was, work from 6 till 8:30 on one exam, and then go to work all day, get home for 6 p.m. and then study from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on another exam. So I would do 2 exams every quarter.
Wow.
I was just obsessed. And I would say to my dad, I can't race, I can't ride this weekend, I need to do this. I would say to my friends, don't talk to me like
Discipline.
I was so disciplined because I wanted it so bad. And obviously that's just, and it helped me because you then can put more focus on obviously your career when you do stop studying, and then it all starts falling into place because with sometimes you're learning about stuff that professionally you're not quite doing yet because it's like that next step up. So it gave me such a good foundation that when I was progressing so fast, I hadn't done it that long ago. It was only like a year or two ago.
Yes.
So
and I think that's a really important note to make, is that studying with your ACCA alongside working, I think can just form such a solid foundation in your career. Those papers of financial accounting, statutory, audit, tax, they're all things, in theory, you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is so difficult. But actually, you actually do practice those things in the real world. Yeah. And there were times in my early career that I actually found myself going back through my books sometimes. Yeah. And just applying that knowledge to some of the real life scenarios. So thank you for sharing that. So now we're in accounts assistant role. We've done our AAT. We then go on to do ACCA. At what point did you get bolstered into the FD role?
I went from obviously account assistant and then I became a management accountant while I was studying the ACCA, finished that, and then I sort of went finance manager for a year, head of finance, FD, and it was just really fast within probably about 5 years. Yeah. I think it was super fast, just one after the other, moving through businesses and
What was your biggest challenge when you were going through the ranks of like FM, FC, FD? Was there any step that was like, whoop, I don't know if this is right for me, let me just take a step back and see what I need to do and reassess? Or was everything quite linear for you?
I think you don't realise challenges when you're in them because I was so naive, which I think one of the benefits of being young, because you just think everything's sort of normal, so you sort of take things in your stride. So my first head of finance role, or number one role, was an accident. They actually had someone above me, but when I started as a contractor there, they said, oh, actually, we don't need that person because you can do that. So that was sort of a natural, non-scary way of going to number one. But then when I left there for my next contract, I remember, and that was as a finance director, I remember walking to the office on my first day being like, gosh, I've bitten off way more I can chew here. I don't know if I can do this role, but you do. Obviously, that's just imposter syndrome, and you do, and you just do it and get on with it. And like, you learn on the job, and you know, you can ask questions, you can, well, back then it was like Google stuff. So yeah.
So now we're in the FDC and the opportunity comes up for you to be CFO. Was you progressed into that role, or was it a contract role? Like, how did you do the jump from finance director now to CFO?
I went into a contract as a CFO, and that was a title, but it was in the startup world, which I think is a nice step to a CFO because you're not dealing with like multi-complex structures. So that was good. And then from there, I sort of gained that confidence to go and do it at other places.
Yeah. Now we're in the CFO seat. The buck stops with you. Any challenges, any time that you thought, actually, I think I might have to take a step back and maybe get myself a mentor or just somebody that's going to help me find my voice in the boardroom? Did anyone inspire you? What was your setup when it came to being confident in the boardroom?
I think it was never about confidence with me in a boardroom. It was more about, I got to a point, and this was probably after my first CFO role, where I thought I lacked almost like technical knowledge. So I thought I want to learn more because there's nothing you can learn academically to help you with that, with stuff that's going on in the world. So I stepped down to an FD and had a really good CFO as a mentor. I used to be the CFO of Bumble, so I was like, you know, this guy is really, really good. But I did it for 6 months and I just hated it. I just hated not having exposure to everything, not making decisions. I felt like it didn't help me at all. But I'm still really good friends with him. But I just thought actually the best way to learn is you just do it.
So that's always been your motto. I'm just going to throw myself into it. I'm just going to do it. Any challenges that you've had along the way that made you buckle at all?
I think there's always been challenges, especially I think early on in my career, being so young. I probably had a bit of like an attitude problem. Like I had a very juvenile mindset of how to talk in boardrooms and stuff like that, because no one actually teaches you stuff like that. And I probably didn't talk in the best way at times, and you forget the respect that's very different in like a boardroom or in a business to what it is when you're young. And there have probably been times in my career that I easily could have like really messed roles up because of not having that knowledge of how to communicate properly. But it's probably only when I look back on that now I can see that.
Yeah. And that's quite an important note to take, actually. My biggest challenge in my career was never technical. It was never my ability to lead. It was never my ability to drive a business forward or to add value. It was always finding my voice and articulating myself in a room that was very unfamiliar to me, and a room that I didn't feel like I belonged in. And nobody but yourself can actually make that adjustment, reposition yourself so that you are able to say, actually, I belong here and my voice needs to be heard. I mean, you hold the papers that has the numbers. If anyone's going to be driving the stewardship of the business, it's going to be the CFO. The buck kind of stops with you and your CEO. Was there any conversations that you kind of wish that you'd had with somebody before you took that leap into your CFO role?
I think it would be, like the perfect word you use is articulation, is just not knowing how to articulate stuff. And I think as a person personally, I have struggled with that. So I think I wish I'd had almost like professional mentorship. Because how you are perceived, where your career is going to go. Because if you don't have the respect, no matter how technically good you are, if people don't like working with you or think, oh, you can't communicate well, unfortunately, you'll probably really struggle to progress, especially into that C-suite position where you need to be the forefront of a business. So I think that's where I really wish I'd had that guidance. It wasn't until I got to London and I realised how far behind I was from that side of things. So that was a bit of a humbling culture shock.
Once you found that, I wouldn't call it a weakness, but once you found that, probably that challenge, how did you turn it around? Like, how did you find your voice in the executive room?
I read a lot of books. Like I genuinely would go out of my way and be like, this is where I need to be better. So I would read books. I would start putting myself in rooms, not even finance or within that business, but other rooms. I would go to events and things like that because I never did stuff like that before. I was really, really shy, but I just started talking more with people, especially who were at that more senior level. And I think it helps when they're older as well because people who are older than me do have more experience. So it is so good to learn from them. How do they communicate? How do they talk? And that's just what I did and what I had to do.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think things like this podcast, and I thank ACCA for doing this, is that those that are coming up behind us, it's another tool, it's another way that you can explore what's needed to make you ready for your next step up or even lateral step within your career journey. So no, thank you very much for sharing that. So one thing you touched on was that you found yourself being in rooms that was beneficial for you. So you was very strategic about who you were sat next to or who you were speaking to. And you mentioned age. And I'm going to come back to that because you are very young and I think it's quite inspiring. Like the traditional status quo of ACCA is that you kind of start your journey in like your early 20s, but by then you'd already been qualified for how many? So what age did you qualify?
22.
22.
Yeah. And
by 25 you was FD and by 28 you were CFO. And I just think that's absolutely amazing. So congratulations to you. Now leading, and you mentioned age and you found yourself sitting next to people to almost gravitas and learn from them because older people have more experience. What's been the biggest challenge when you think about your leadership style, how you lead? Because I'm assuming you're a lot younger than the team that you're managing. Have you found that challenging and how did you overcome that?
To begin with, it was. So when I was, like you say, in my early 20s and I was managing people who were 40 plus, they just didn't respect me at all. Yeah. But I just was always kill them with kindness. Just don't change. Your values should never change based on other people's actions because your values are who you are. Yeah. And my style was always just be kind, give people the space to voice their opinions, and like progress people. I think that's what people don't like or will show resentment towards is if they feel you've come in and you've become their ceiling. So it's just the better they're at their job, the better you can be at your job. So that's sort of the way I overcome it. But to be honest, the respect actually came with the experience and the title because naturally when you have, I guess, proved yourself in a way and other senior members of the business trust you, the staff naturally trust you then. And like my team now are all older than me, but because I'm on the C-suite and they trust the CEO and the COO and the board, and the board trusts me, they naturally just respect and trust me. So.
Absolutely. So still talking about leadership, how did you build confidence in your team, knowing that there's a bit of an age gap or there's a perception that because you're younger, you don't have the experience? How did you then start building the confidence in them?
I guess it's just answering their questions because to them, that's the only way that I can, I guess, prove myself to them or guiding them. Because what I find with my members of staff is it's more the proactiveness. If you can help them help themselves of what to look for and what to guide towards, then I find that naturally gives them confidence in you too. So it's just identifying work that they could get more efficient in or they could understand things themselves. Because what I like to do with my teams is get them to think for themselves before it comes to me. So I'll say, or why they don't just give me the figures, tell me why and tell me how you got to that, because sometimes I'll be like, oh well, this has happened and we just haven't performed that well here, and I'm like, but why? Have you looked at this? Is it because of this what workings can you do? So it's just trying to give them the confidence to be able to be proactive themselves.
No, that's brilliant. So Sophia, one of the things that you touched on when we had a conversation is that you've worked in private equity backed businesses. And it's been such a hot topic amongst us financial accountants, FD, CFOs, because it's perceived to be such a tough environment to work in. Can you talk to me a little bit more about your experience and any tips you can give anybody that is breaking into that particular environment?
I actually think I broke into it through Look. So I worked in owner managed all my career up until my first CFO role.
Yeah.
And then they had investment, but they were in a high risk business. So it was angel investment. So I helped raise for them, but wasn't quite, that strict PE firm. So where I work now, I went in as a contractor.
Okay.
And because they moved the other CFO out.
Yeah.
And I think it was more Look, so I managed to prove myself. So when my contract came to an end, they actually said, "You've done such great work. Do you want to stay on?" Rather than us looking for a new CFO.
Right.
But I think that is very pure luck because, like you say, it's such a hard industry to break into. Like you say, they want you to have experience, but no one's willing to give you the experience. Yeah. But it is hard and it is scary because...
Absolutely.
I always think as the CFO, if the business isn't performing, it's like it's your fault. It's like if the business is going wrong, we have to get rid of the CFO first because it's like they're the problem. And when you're just a messenger, it isn't always an easy environment to be in because things aren't going well all the time.
Correct.
But my advice would be if you can show why, if you can show your plan for if X, Y, and Z happen and just show you care and you're passionate, they'll never be able to replace that with someone else.
Yeah.
Because somebody might bring experience in a different area, but they might not be operationally as good or culturally as good with the rest of the business.
Yeah. So we've touched on the qualification. We've touched on your career journey. We've looked at leadership. We've looked at some of the challenges, some of the step backs, because one of the things you mentioned that you step back before you can go forward. And I think that's an important point to note is that it's not all linear sometimes. But then we need to always remember that we're still a human being and we still have a life outside of all the climbing and all the growth and also equally the qualification. Who's Sophia outside of her CFO role?
I grew up doing like extreme sports, so motocross. So I was a complete adrenaline junkie. And I actually think that massively helped me in my career because you always want that next like dopamine hit of like what's going to make you feel good. Yeah. And I remember always feeling like I had two lives. Like on a Sunday, I'd be like racing, putting my life at risk, riding a bike. And then on Monday, I would like rock up to work and they were like two complete different people. Right. But now I don't write anymore because my body's just falling apart from all the injuries. But I love like playing chess. I love like learning. I'm obsessed with learning as much as I can while I'm on like planet Earth and being like the best at what I can be, whatever that is going to be. I don't know. But
do you think that quality then has played a really important role in you like progressing your career? That hunger to always learn.
Yeah, and I think it's the curiosity because you want to understand why this is happening, what does that mean? And I've never been ashamed to ask questions. Like no question is ever too stupid.
Absolutely.
And if someone has made you feel like a question is too stupid, you don't want to be working for that person. So I was just always asked the right questions, or not even the right ones, but how can I progress if I don't fully understand something? That's what I used to have, that mentality.
A really important question I think some of our listeners would like to hear is that in your mid-career, was there anything that you were worried about that you now look back and think, that was not my worry? Because we tend to be coming up and I think a lot of I call them the new breeds, which is that they're hybrids. They're a little bit management, they're a little bit financial, and they want this journey. They want to be catapulted. But the things that they worry about is the compensation, the title, the essence of it, when really we should be not worried about, but thinking about adding value. What do I need to do in order to drive this business forward? Who's my network? How can I network with those people so that I... and not always going upwards, but sometimes doing those lateral effects and making impact to a business. Was there anything that in your mid-career that you were worried about that now when you look back thinking, actually, that wasn't a worry?
I think job title.
Yeah.
I think because I didn't really know the next steps. All I knew was the next job title.
Yeah.
That was probably like a worry. And then obviously with that comes compensation. It's like, well, if I'm underpaid here, I'll be underpaid forever because the next place will underpay me. And that was like in a world where you would like disclose your salary to the next one. So you wouldn't want to say your salary in case that one then underpaid you. But obviously I think when I look back now, it's easy to be like, well, it all works out in the end. You're obviously going to get somewhere. But I think what helped me and the advice I would give for that like middle ground is you have to show proactiveness and passion about what you do,
right.
Especially if your managers are the founders or the owners or have equity in the business. You're all on the same path to have the same success. So if you're not showing passion about what you're doing, they just think you don't care. And I think that was a massive benefit for me, is that just being proactive and wanting the business to do well. Because no one wants someone they have to tell what to do. You want people who would just know what to do.
Know exactly what to do.
But always be kind as well, because your network, even if you feel like your network, don't just try and have a network of people senior than you, because they're not always going to be there when you're progressing through your career. You'll all come up together. And if you've upset people along the way, will have to have relations with them again at some point. So it's just, always just be kind as well.
We're going to go into things like inspire you, because you came up quite quickly. One of the things I'm really hot on is mentorship. I had a great mentor. My mentor was my director for years, and we're still great friends today. He actually gave up his seat on the board for me. And without him speaking my name in certain rooms, I don't think I would actually be in a position that I am. Any mentors for you? Anyone that really, truly inspired you on your journey to become a CFO?
So I wouldn't say mentors as such, but I went into one role as an FD, and I ended up working really closely with the CFO, and he was actually the founder of the business as well. And he inspired me in so many ways, because he gave me the view of what actually business looks like, not just finance, but managing a business and the responsibilities and seeing things from a much more holistic and strategic perspective. And he just inspired me so much to do better because of what he made me feel like I could do. And I think that's a massive thing as well, is people seeing in you things that you don't always see in yourself. And I think that's what a mentor is very good for. They can see areas of weaknesses and strengths that you think are just normal, or you don't know what to hone into. So
What's been the most meaningful part of your CFO journey, and something that's really surprised you?
So when I actually first became a CFO, I all of a sudden just fell out of love with finance. And I think it is that chasing the next thing. And I think when I felt like I had that job title, I was just like, what is next for me? I feel like I went through a period of probably like 6 to 9 months where I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and I hated being like my role, and I hated being a CFO. And I actually found that I didn't actually hate finance. I just hated the environments I was in. And I think it's so important. Like, as a CFO, you can choose where you work. You are just as an asset to a business as a business is an asset to you. And it's just finding the right environment that fits you and the way you work.
And so did you find yourself having to chop and change a little bit until you could find an environment that worked for you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's when I took that step back, because I thought the problem was me, as in like, why don't I must need to learn more. So that's when I sort of stepped back to FD to sort of have that CFO mentor. And I realised actually it isn't my lack of capabilities of being a CFO. I'm just not in an environment where I can thrive. So it was just being able to be put in that environment where you can thrive, where you have a voice. Because I think it really knocks your confidence. And I'm sure we've all experienced this when you go in a room and people tell you you're wrong, or they talk over you, and it's just not good environments to be in. I think it's just important that you look after yourself, because you can't do the best job if you're not looking after yourself. Outside.
Absolutely. And just touching on looking after yourself, how do you find balance between the climbing and the thriving and the almost keeping yourself well and balance, especially in this industry?
Do you know, it's really hard because I worked so hard when I was in my 20s. You have like so much energy then. And honestly, when I got like turned 29 and I've just turned 30, I'm exhausted now. Like you are like
try 43.
You do like a whole day at work and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to study like in the morning and the evenings. But I do just like sleep is just super, super important and moving. I think it's so easy, especially if you work from home, to not move, but just, especially when the weather's nice, like go play tennis, like go, just stuff with your friends and just, absolutely just so important. But I think you don't realise that until you get older. Because when you are, in your 20s, you're like, oh, I can just do it. I'm not tired. It's just,
And I think it's a really important note to add that with this, what you mentioned that we studied in the morning, we studied in the evening, and we also had a full-time job. So many of us who are coming up through the ACCA journey forget to live.
Yeah.
We forget we're not just building a career, we're also building legacy. And with legacy comes yourself and comes your wellness. And it's just so important to try and get that balance. And that's the one nugget that if anyone's listening to this podcast, like my one takeaway is without you there is no CFO, there is no journey. So always try and be well. Like the qualification, no one can take that away from you. Once you have your letters and that stamp, you're good. Just try and pace yourself in your journey, because we're building legacy, we're not just building a career. So no, well done to you. So thinking about legacy and thinking about your journey and that continuous, always thriving, what's next for Sophia?
I'm not sure. I think it's such a hard question because it almost is like, what's next? Do I have title goals? Do I have financial goals? I'm not sure. One of the things, I just want to be happy, I think, and that is as you get older, you are just like, I am nothing if I'm not happy, and I can't fill up anyone else's cup if mine's not filled up. I just hope whatever it does look like, I'm satisfied. Maybe it's really hard to satisfy me because I'm always like, what is the next thing?
Is CFO your North Star? Is that your stop point, or is there something beyond that?
I mean, I feel like this is a bit sort of so typical in like today's environment, but I would love to start my own business, and I'm constantly looking at like gaps that I could fill in a market, because it's something that I'm really, really interested in. And I think I get told a lot by other people that I should start my own business. They're like, you're just an entrepreneur, you're just so creative, like you're a bit chaotic, which isn't a typical CFO. And I think I've been in environments where I've helped run businesses before as sort of like a CEO / CFO, and I've thrived in those environments. I love it. So I think it will be going along that path for sure.
Absolutely. Good. Anyone listening to this podcast, what 3 nuggets would you like them to take away from listening to you speak about your journey?
The first one, and it's a bit boring, but you actually have to work hard to get somewhere. And I know that sounds a bit mean, but it is true. Like, I only got here because I did work really, really hard. And I wanted it. You're not going to get here if you don't want it. And like, don't convince yourself you want it. You actually have to want it. I think that's really, really important. And you have to work for it. But it would be like, learn how to communicate with people. But just enjoy the journey. I definitely was just so focused throughout my career that I didn't even, like you say, you don't realise that life is actually just existing around you. And I would give up time with my friends. Like, I started my motocross career to do this. And obviously it has paid off now. But it's just enjoy existing and look after yourself for sure.
So Sophia, thank you so much for coming onto the ACCA podcast today. I think one of the key takeaways I've taken away from you is that like, knowledge is power, and if you've got the hunger and you can have the passion for it, then go for it. And a lot of people listening to this is probably sitting there thinking, I don't actually know what it's going to take for me to do it, and I really hope that they'll be inspired by you. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for tuning into an episode today of The Journey to CFO. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation and took away some valuable insights. If you did, then please make sure that you subscribe and engage and share the episode with your network and your communities. You can find more information and upcoming episodes on the ACCA LinkedIn page. A huge thank you to Sophia for being a guest today and for joining us and sharing your experience and journey. Until next time, I'm Rachel Shorter. You are tuned in to ACCA Journey to CFO, and I'll see you next time.